Hey everyone. In this video, I want to show you how to deploy an application to Kubernetes using what's known as an Ingress controller. Now, Ingress means to enter, something that enters. And in this case, we're talking about traffic from the internet reaching an application. Okay. And in Kubernetes, there is a resource called Ingress controller. And what it does is it controls two primary things. One, it controls infrastructure, and that infrastructure is called a load balancer. All right, a load balancer is what distributes traffic to that application. Okay, and there can be many different types of applications behind that load balancer, and for that reason, there's a second piece to the Ingress controller that manages the rules at which requests from the internet are routed to specific applications. So the Ingress controller controls the infrastructure, the load balancer, and number two, the routing rules. Okay, based off of a different a domain or a path that you enter uh, in a URL that gets routed to a backend service that's providing providing an application service. Okay, so that's what an Ingress controller does at a high level. Okay, we're going to be using Google Cloud, and in order to deploy this Ingress controller, we want to use the resources available from the Kubernetes community, uh, and we will deploy it into the cluster right now. Now, before I do that, I kind of want to show you that in this cluster, I have only one service running, and it's a database service associated with an application. It's called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Okay, it's using AI. And as a matter of fact, let me just kind of show you something real quick. So it's very popular. Even NVIDIA has it in their blogs and so forth. So it's a technique for enhancing accuracy and reliability of generative AI models with facts fetched from external sources. That's probably the best way I've heard anyone or anything describe it. All right, so that's RAG. All right, so I have a database, which is that external data source that the article just talked about, and it's accessible through this IP address. Okay, and I'm configuring. Well, first of all, I'm going to deploy the. Let me pump the brakes a little bit. First, I want to go ahead and deploy that Ingress controller, which is what I was explaining before. Okay, so sometimes it takes a few seconds. So we'll see how long it takes here. And once that finishes, we're going to have that Ingress controller up, and we're going to get into deploying the application, setting the service, and creating Ingress momentarily. All right, so the Ingress is just completed. If we clear the screen and I show you the services that created, it created this deployment here that's still spinning up this Ingress controller deployment. So let's see if it's actually up and running. So yeah, so it just spun up this Ingress controller along with these services, the Ingress controller itself and the Ingress controller admission, 32 seconds a piece. All right, so we got that piece already defined. All right, so one more thing I forgot to mention. So this Ingress controllers, they route these requests, based on those rules that we're going to get into. They route the request to services in Kubernetes. Okay, so services are a key piece to how the routing works. Okay, so we're going to see how that works right now. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is, I have this deployment created, as a one-liner, and I've configured my environment variables to reach out to that database that I showed previously. this one right here, this PG vector service. This one ends in 210. All right, and port 5000. So I have those set right there. So I have that command that's going to create my deployment with my custom image, and it's going to set those environment variables, and we're going to put that command in here right now, and it's going to create those two, or that the deployment and update the environment variables. Okay, so now when we look at get all, we see that that GPT clone deployment has been deployed. Okay, now in order to get a service going related to this deployment, we want to use a really handy, command line, um, command from the command line. It's called expose, and this is going to create the service for us and automatically associate the port that was, defined in the deployment. It's going to define it in the service. So we don't have that service right now, as we see, but I'll go ahead and enter this command so we can create the service that's associated with the deployment. That's what we're doing. All right, so we expose that service, and now let's take a look at it again. Okay, so now we have the GPT clone deployment deployed as a cluster IP. So that's very interesting to note because, with Ingress, these services are actually inside; they're not exposed to the outside world. So it's actually a cluster IP, which is what I thought was very interesting. Because this actually could be a load balancer itself, a load balancer type, but it's going to be a cluster IP. All right, so now we have that GPT clone deployment service already up and running. So now what we want to do is create that ingress, okay? And remember what I told you that when we create an ingress, it does two things. It spins up a load balancer, and you have to provide a rule to route to a service, okay? So that you don't think I'm a liar, let me go ahead and enter this command here. Now this command is creating the ingress and it's providing a name for it, and it's giving a rule. This rule, this / means anything that hits the load balancer that is gonna spin up. Anything that hits it, it's a catch-all. So anything that hits this / is going to be routed to this GPT clone deployment service that I just spun up right here. Okay, so actually that's so that GPT clone deployment service running on port 3000, which I just spun up. Okay, so that's what's going to happen right now. So you see, we have a rule that we have defined and the service that we've previously defined with that expose command. So now when I do cube get ingress, so we're gonna see that it will eventually spin up give a public IP address, which is associated with the load balancer. Okay, so typically this could take probably about a minute or so. So what I can do here, if it takes too long, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and come back once it's assigned, and we can get further into this exercise. Okay, so that took about 2 minutes to spin up to get the public IP of the load balancer. But we're still not done because behind the scenes, it takes a moment for, I guess, the reconciliation of, that load balance, so the ingress for and the container service to connect. So if we look So this is the IP. So it's still not up and running yet. So it does take a moment. So what I'm going to do is pause the video again and return once that's done. All right, so we're back and the application has deployed. And I actually have a bit of an update because when we are deploying these applications in React, I found out that when we do so, we need to, so this has to do with the ingress itself. So let me just kind of show you what I mean. When we configure ingress and the application is a React app, I noticed that the path type configuration is important. By default, the path type was exact, and I wasn't getting a response from the React app until I did a little bit of research. And once I changed it to prefix, it actually worked. So that's just a note for you, okay? And I'll put a link to the documentation I read that referenced that there, but just a little note. So the app is up and running. So let's see if it actually has connection to um, the database. Hey, so we're good. So that was my demonstration on how to create a. So I mean, there's a little bit of background as why uh, I asked the question about who won the Super Bowl. It has to do with the cutoff date, the knowledge retrieval cutoff date for this LLM, which is this ChatGPT Turbo 3.5, and so the cutoff date for knowledge was, I believe, is 2021, and the Kansas Chiefs just won the Super Bowl this year. So I mean, this is a RAG application. I've uploaded some data in a RAG application, and so these are some of the data that I use just to kind of show that it's up to date. Let me test one more thing. All right, so yeah, if I ask it, so I'm going to ask it another random question. Uh, what is your knowledge cutoff date? Oh, okay, so now you're trying to be funny. So, anyways, we definitely know that ChatGPT, um, doesn't have a knowledge cutoff date of 2024. But hey, this is really kind of meant to show how to deploy an application on Kubernetes with Ingress. And the RAG, this is a basic RAG, but there's going to be more advanced ones coming forward. So this is just the stepping stone. And if we kind of go back again to the Ingress, that's the Ingress configuration there. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please do leave those in the comments. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And I will be back with another video soon. Thank you.